Hey everybody, Jason here with the Landlord launch, and today we are going to be doing our walkthrough of how to do a market survey. We use the market survey to find comps, to find what they are charging, how they compare to our product, and really dial in that market rent. I have a kind of a preset. We're going to be using my market survey form, which we'll have access to. The way this is kind of set up, though, to save a little time, I kind of have this set up to where some of this information is preloaded as we walk through the steps here, but that's for your time. I doubt you want 30 minutes of this video to be you watching me type in information. We are going to once again use the market survey form that you have access to, and then we are also going to, at least for today, use Zillow as our internet listing service. Now keep in mind, there are a lot of internet listing services out there. I just randomly grab Zillow, but you can go use anything that you want and you can find those properties. And, I'm not even saying Zillow is the best one, because the way they display information may not work as well as some of these other sites. But we grabbed one. We're just going to use it. We're going to move forward. The bigger picture here is that you kind of see how we walk through this, how I gather this information, kind of how we determine, the pluses and the minuses to kind of adjust everything out to see if your property is comparable to the other properties that are out there that you're competing against. Okay, so what we have here is our market survey form. And basically what this is we have one column here that is our subject property. Now that's our property, the property that we want to evaluate, and that's column B here. And then you'll see we have in column C, E, and G, comp 1, comp 2, comp 3. Now, if you want to do more, do more. That's completely up to you. For our sakes, I'm actually only going to do just a couple properties here and then walk through the process, because once you see how one is done, you'll be able to figure the rest out and make adjustments from there. And then we also have the adjustments column. Now, this is something that you don't have to use, but if you want to use it to try to dial it in all that much more, I'm going to show you how to do that as well. So let's go on and get started. Now, the first thing we're going to do is, if you look over here, when you open up your version of the market survey, it's not going to have these other tabs. It's just going to have this blank one, which has, what you're seeing now, and it's going to have instructions. And this is just basic instructions, nothing special here. But we're going to follow that through just so that when you do this yourself, you have something to kind of relate back to and tie into. So the first thing we're going to do here is we are going to enter the property information for our subject property. That's a property we have for rent that we want to know about in this column B. So what I have done is preloaded a property here. And our property is going to be 835 Southwest Jewel, and I have just gone down the line here and entered that information. So I picked one randomly off of Zillow just so we could use it as an example, and in that there were other properties, similar properties in the area for us to look at. So we start with entering an address here. I like to see what the home value is as part of that. Now, you may not be able to tell what that's going to be off of Zillow, but what you can do, if it's not on Zillow or your internet listing site or whatever, is you can actually go to, I always just type in the county, and then like this is Shawnee County, so I'll type in Shawnee County Appraiser, and then it'll come up with tax information on there, and that's where I get that home value at. So for example, here's the card, and you can see that the 2023 appraised value is 105,460. The other thing I like that I pull off of this, because again, it's not always listed, is I think I saw it on this front page. Yeah, the year built was 1935. So to me, that's relevant. I mean, if you have a new build in 2013 versus a 100-year-old property, that's going to make a difference. So I've listed the home value there, and I've listed the year built. Now, here, this is the rent rate that they are actually asking on Zillow. And let me just look at Zillow real quick. So what I've done is I've come over here and I've clicked the rent, and then I've put some filters in. Topeka, Kansas is what we're looking at. And then I've put 3-bed, 2-bath is what I've selected here. And it brought me to a map. And then ultimately this has everything that's for rent in that. But for our purposes, I kind of want to isolate it to this area. So I zoomed in, because what that allows me to do is, this is, I think this is the subject property, 835 Jewel. Yep, so what that allows us to do is, if this is the subject property, we can see all the other properties in the area, and we can start exploring them to see if they are a close enough match for them to include on our market survey. So let's just look at this listing here real quick. So it has a lot of the information that we need: how many beds, baths, cooling, features, or the AC, heating, what type of flooring, what appliances are included, the parking, just the overall information for the home. And I also like that it has pictures, because it gives me a sense of kind of the quality of the flooring, the paint, how it looks, the feel of it. Is it nice? Is it not so nice? You know, a little bit about kind of what the neighborhood looks like. I'm actually familiar with this neighborhood, and the neighborhood surrounding as well. So I kind of have an idea for, you know, the quality of the neighborhood itself. And you know, if you have a rental, you are most likely familiar with that neighborhood too. I do want to show you something else here. That's a pretty decent listing. The way this is all set out has some decent pictures on here. You know, it has they've taken the time, put a little bit of information in the description. Freshly painted home with hardwood floors, washer, dryer, refrigerator, stove, 2-car garage, no pets. So no smoking, you know, tenant responsible utilities. So that's a lot of good information here. I do want to show you, just kind of tying in back to, was this it? Let me find it. Tying back into our property marketing module, when we're talking about that property headline, that property description, and so forth. So this is a listing that is one of the comps, same area. And I'm just looking here. We have one picture. It's not a good picture. I don't know. I don't even know. This almost looks like, I don't know where this is pulled up, but it's blurry. It's at a weird angle. It kind of looks like things are overgrown here. I mean, the grass is tall. I mean, there's weeds over here. Again, not blurry. It is blurry. It's not crisp or clean. Heck, you can't even barely tell what the address is there. And then I got to looking here, just looking through. It does have some basic information: 4-bedroom, 2 baths, but everything else is parking, contact manager, other information, contact manager. It does say single family home. There's not really a description on here. It does say no pets, contact manager, contact manager. It just doesn't have a lot of information. So if you were looking at a listing like this compared to, is this it? Let's try this one. Now look at this listing. Again, this isn't one of those sites that gives you the option to put in necessarily like the headline. This uses one of those standard headlines we're talking about. But look at the difference in the pictures. Clean picture. Yeah, there's some weeds and stuff over here, but still not blurry. Has a good angle on it. Grass is knocked down. Interior pictures. I like how it's watermarked here. Nice hardwood floors, nice kitchen. I mean, you are getting a real sense between this property and that other property what you're getting into. When you start looking at the information: parking, open parking, deposits, laundry's in unit, there's ceiling fans, dogs are allowed. It gets into a lot more information. I mean, look at this description. Again, not a strong headline, but a great description in here, which really lets you know where it's at. Or actually, I'll take that back. This home is now available in the perfect location of College Hill within walking distance of Washburn University. So, who do you think that target market is? Who do you think they're trying to attract for this home? I don't know, but if it was me, I would say in walking distance of Washburn University, looking for college students, that would be their ideal customer. Now, having said that, this is nice, and this is a nice home. I think that anybody would probably enjoy living here, and if you are into like being around kind of that college area, and I know this area, there's a lot of restaurants and a lot of things to do that are close by. This would be an attractive deal for you. But it gets into, fenced yard, gives a good description of everything that's happening here, gives some good pictures of what everything's like, nice little deck, gets in some additional information here about the fees. So when you're thinking and about your ad, your marketing, and what's going to capture attention and what is going to be more attractive to somebody leasing a home, would you rather, as a tenant, be looking at something like this? Would you be more likely to call and set an appointment here, or would you call and set an appointment here? I don't know, it seems pretty obvious to me, but I thought that would be a good opportunity to point out kind of the difference of what those descriptions and those pictures and those things can do to really attract tenants. It does make a difference. Okay, so let's get back at this here. Back to our market survey. Okay, so we have gone through that Zillow ad, and I pulled all the information. I went to the Shawnee County appraiser to get the home value and the year built, but went through and picked up all the information needed to. What do I... Well, actually, this is our property, so theoretically we should know what this is, but I pulled one off Zillow, so let's just pretend this is our property. We want a 1-year lease. We're going to charge, let's just say we're going to charge $65 for our application fee. We want a $1,200 deposit. We don't want animals. We have 2-car detached garage, fence. It's a 2-story home, unfinished basement, no fireplace, central heating, window air units, which, trust me, in Kansas in the summer, that is not probably going to be a pleasant experience. Depends probably how many window units you have, but it gets hot and humid there. Let's see here. It does come with blinds, no walk-in closets, does have some ceiling fans, hardwood floors, tile for the secondary flooring, which is usually either kitchen or bath. Does come with most of the appliances, not the microwave, and the tenant pays for all the utilities. Okay. We have a pretty good understanding what comes with our property and what we want to compare. So next, what we are going to do is we are going to go here and we are going to find other properties that are similar in our area. And there's not a whole bunch for rent in this area, but I'm going to use properties in this area because this is kind of unique in terms of the types of homes and everything else that Topeka has to offer. I think when you get up here in the North Topeka, there's similar builds or whatever, but these are generally the same neighborhoods. There is a pretty significant difference between this area here, which is right next to the college, and when you get over here in this old town and over here at 6th in Kansas, this gets to be rougher areas. Even this starts to get a little rougher. So, but we're going to adjust for that, and I'm going to show you how we do that. So we're going to skip this one because, again, not only is it not a good ad, but it doesn't give us really any information to even figure out if it's even an actual comp, outside of bedrooms, baths, square footage. It doesn't give us a lot of what's going on there. We can't see on the inside. I even went to the website here, and it was pretty much the same thing. So unfortunately, not very useful for our purposes. Okay, so let's grab this one over here, and this is the one that I showed you before. So this is going to be 1193 College. Now, went through, grabbed all the information for 1193 College, went to the Shawnee County and picked up the home value, picked up the year built, and then I also picked up one at 311 Clay. And let me show you where that's at. That's actually going to be a little further over here, but this is generally considered the Potwin area. It's on the outskirts of the Potwin area, but The Potwin area has some nice houses in there, similar age homes, similar type homes as this College Hill and Old Town area. So that's why I selected that one. And for our purposes, I'm only going to do the two comps. I could go find another comp. We're really only going to analyze this comp one because once you know how to do this, you'll be able to apply the same to comp two and comp three and go for there. But for the sake of time in this video and you not being here for 4 hours, we will just do one. So we have captured, which is step two, locate comps in similar or same neighborhoods, same basic square footage or similar square footage, similar bedrooms, baths, similar age. Get as much as possible to be close, because when we adjust, we don't want these huge adjustments. We don't want to try to logically adjust for 100-year difference in the home of the build. If you look at ours, 1935, 1913, 1926, and the 1913 has actually been updated, so it's kind of bringing it back to that original condition. These not as much, so I would say that generally speaking, these are close enough. The prices, the comp one and comp two are, the prices are a little higher in comp one, comp two, but again, they're close enough. We're not talking $400,000 to $105,000. This 141, this one has been updated, which is, if it wasn't updated, that price would probably be closest 105. And then the comp two, this neighborhood compared to this neighborhood, although this isn't as nice of a house as a lot of the other houses in Potwin, that Potwin neighborhood, there's some nice houses back in there, so that actually kind of pushes the value up there. Again, I'm familiar with the area, so to me that makes sense, and not a big deal. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, once we have all of our comp information in here and we've lined them up, and you can see some of this stuff, like here on the additional fees, I've put down there, it's $8. They charge monthly $8 for pest control, $25 for a non-refundable pet fee, and they require renter's insurance. Are we going to require renter's insurance? Yeah, I think so. This property here doesn't actually indicate any of that, and if it doesn't indicate, well, you can make some assumptions. Like, it doesn't indicate the term of the lease either, but it looks like it's a realtor of some sort that's leasing this. Most agencies are going to require a year lease, so we're going to make that assumption there. They do say that they charge $55 for application fee. This one has an application fee of $35, which is really cheap actually these days. So that could actually even be a potential advantage, making this property more attractive, especially since ours, which I didn't carry it over, adjust the formatting here, sorry. But 1 year lease and $65. Which I'm not going to go carry that through everything, but we're requiring a 1 year lease. We're charging $65. 1 year lease, $35. 1 year, $55. So these guys are actually really cheap. I'm not going to make an adjustment off of that, but I mean, we're not completely out of range. We're on the high end of that, and that may mean that somebody's not going to be as inclined to apply for a home as perhaps something like this, but is what it is. Okay, next step here, identify the features that make the comp properties more attractive and then highlight them in a shade of red. Now, this whole process is a little counterintuitive. So we want to find the components of their property that are better than ours. Okay, and then we want to highlight it red, because to me, red means negative, and this is where that you kind of got to get your mind wrapped around it. What we want to do is, if their property is better than ours, we want to adjust it down so that it gets closer to our property. So for example, if they're in a better neighborhood and their rent is $13.95, we want to try to reduce that factor to make it more similar to ours. So if they're in a better neighborhood and we say, okay, for us to make it similar, we want to reduce the quality of their neighborhood so that it matches ours, and therefore we want to make a negative rent adjustment. I know it takes a second to get our head wrapped around, but that's why I use the coloring the way I did. If it is a more attractive feature, we are going to highlight it red. And to keep our mind wrapped around this, we're going to take this step by step. And red means, in my mind, it's more negative than green is. So it reminds me that I want to adjust that down. We'll get to that in a minute. So I'm going to go through and look at all the features that may make this a more attractive home to somebody that's looking. So animals, they accept animals up to 40 pounds. Does that make it more attractive? Maybe not the home itself, but it does open up the market and gives them advantage compared to me on my property where I am not accepting animals. So again, I'm going to mark that red because when I come to adjust, I want to adjust that down. I'm going to take this property and I'm going to say, okay, how much would I reduce this rent if, I brought this down to no animals, to where that market shrinks back up and gets it more on a level playing ground with my comp property. Storage shed. They have a storage shed. I do not have a storage shed. I want to remove that storage shed theoretically to get it to compare and be apples to apples with my property. See what I'm doing? I'm adjusting things down. I'm eliminating their advantages over my property, and then I am going to assign a value to that so that I can kind of like adjust that rent to see where it really falls in. And then I go down. Central AC is definitely better than a window AC. Walk-in closets are definitely better than no walk-in closets. And then everything else pretty much lines up. Hardwood floors, the tile versus vinyl is not that big of a deal. The hookups versus having a washer and dryer actually provided. To me, I don't know if that's that much of an advantage. I don't feel like it is, because most people who are living in the home already have washer and dryer anyway. They're not looking for those. I would actually prefer to use my own washer and dryer. So yes, is it nice that this property is included in it? Yes, but is it something I need to adjust for? In my head, no. And again, this is kind of an art to a certain degree. There's a process and a way to approach this and a logic behind it, but there are no hard set rules that says, okay, if this has a washer that is worth $22.50 for every such and such. No, it's okay. Is it better? Is it worse? How do we adjust down? How do we adjust up? And then go from there. So that was our next step. We've gone through and we've identified all the areas where this comp, and we would do this also in comp 2 and comp 3. Like here, this would be the same thing. If this cats and dogs, we don't accept cats and dogs, so this would be a red. Let's see here. Everything else actually looks pretty. Now here's this is central AC. That would be a red because we want to adjust that down because this property has a better air conditioning system than our property. But that's the next step, identifying those. And I skipped something here earlier that I want to kind of show you. Our rent per square foot, that's going to be important. So right now, their rent rate, as it compares to their square footage, this subject property, our subject property, we're charging $1.17 per square foot in rent, monthly rent. This one, that equals $1.03 per square foot. Where's the... Oh, I forgot one here. Actually, I didn't forget one. That's not a negative. Anyway, we're charging $1.03 per square foot. So keep that in mind. That's going to come into play as we move forward. Okay, so let's take a look at our next step here. The next step here is now we're going to identify the features that make our comp property or make the comp property less attractive compared to ours, and we're going to highlight them green. And again, I know it's a mind twist, but So when we are looking at 1193 College and 835 Jules, our property is actually more attractive because it has more rooms. And so if we were to add an extra room on 1193 College, how much more could we charge for rent on that? Is it $10? Is it $50? Is it $100? Who knows? But what we're doing with the greens, again, the comp is less attractive, but we're highlighting a green because we're gonna want to adjust that rent up so that we bring it up to the level of the subject property. Additional fees here. This is a disadvantage for this comp property because the subject property is not charging any fees. So if somebody's looking at that, how much does that impact their ability to want to come look at that? And is there a rent adjustment we need to make to bring that up to compare apples to apples? And then once again, detached garage. Subject property has 2-car garage. Comp property, no garages. So if we went in and built a 2-car detached garage at 1193 College, how much more could we charge for rent and make that even to our subject property? So everything that's in green, although the comp is less attractive compared to ours, we're marking it green so that we do a positive adjustment. So it kind of is a little bit of a mind twist there. That's why I have this kind of step by step, and I recommend you go step by step as well too, so you can kind of keep this all straight. And after you do this a couple times, it's probably more difficult to explain than it is than actually doing it once you've done it a time or two. Washer and dryer hookups. Again, I've marked it green but I don't know that there's all that much of an adjustment. The washer and dryer, them including it, maybe, maybe not. But we'll mark it green because we're going to adjust and try to, bring that up. We would do that as well for all the other comp properties that we have listed, so that then we know where we're going to adjust down and where we're going to adjust up for. Okay, so our next step is, if it is a red highlighted field, we are going to adjust that down. If it is a green highlighted field, we are going to adjust that up. Before we do that though, before we do that, let's just take a look at, before we get to the adjustments. Generally speaking, we have 3 properties, somewhat similar areas. I mean, this one's a better area. This one I would say is kind of the same area. If you look at the price per square foot for these 2 that are already in the similar areas, $1.17, $1.16. I think those are really good comps for each other. The rents are actually very comparable to each other. If you're looking at it, I mean, they both have 4 bedrooms, but this one obviously is 400 square feet larger, which makes it a more valuable property. They should be charging more rent, but the price per square foot is right on. So if you were looking at 2 or 3 properties that were this close, you could take a look at this and say, yeah, I'm probably charging the right amount of rent when it is compared to my competitive properties. And that is what we're looking for. If I want to charge $1,200 rent, is that reasonable? Okay, so I just wanted to point that out real quick because, again, you are in a similar price range here, and you can honestly say, yes, I am in the right range. Now, if you were charging $900 for rent, then you are probably leaving money on the table. If you are charging $1,600 a month for rent, you are probably above that market rent cap, and you're going to have a difficult time leasing that. Maybe you'll find somebody, but it's going to take you longer, and it may not be, you're just not going to have near enough of a market. You're not going to have the same market that these other properties are. So our purposes, is this within the right range? Is this the right market rent? And I would say, at least compared to If we had two or three other properties that were this similar, this $16, $17 a square foot, I would say absolutely that you're in the right range here. But having said that, let's move on to the adjustment side. Now, this is, you can stop right there. If you have two, three, four properties and it's all there and you're within the right range and you're good, you can stop. But if you need to dial in and you want to really get into the adjustment size of it, that's where this next step kind of comes in. And that's where this extra column is. And this is where the highlights come in as well. Okay, so now this is going to be a very subjective type deal. I mean, you can go out and see how much more somebody's charging for how much more if you have exact comps. Like if this was a 5-bedroom, this is a 4-bedroom, you can generally get a feel for how much a bedroom is worth, an extra bedroom is worth, those things. But what I'm going to do is I'm first going to go through all of the red ones and I am going to adjust that rent down and place a value on what I think that is worth. So let's take a look at the neighborhood. This is a much better neighborhood. I know it's a better neighborhood, than all the way around. It's closer to college, or the other houses are nice. There's not as much crime. I know it is a better neighborhood. And I know that any day of the week, if you had your option to live in this neighborhood compared to this neighborhood, somebody's going to pick this neighborhood if it's in the same price range. And so to me, I am in a ballpark that is worth $150. Now, what I'm doing here is, if this is our subject property and this is the comp property, what I'm doing is saying, okay, if that's worth $150, I'm going to adjust that down so that I can bring that to be apples to apples with the subject property. To me, I'm ballparking 150, and that doesn't mean your first pass is going to be right. I mean, that's something you can think about and you can adjust and you can play with, but let's just say $150 is what that is worth to somebody. That if somebody were to live in this neighborhood, they are absolutely have no problem paying $150 more a month just to change the neighborhood. If the houses were exactly the same and the only thing was different was the neighborhood, they would pay $150 more easily to live in this neighborhood. So that's why I had that set up that way. And then I go down. Animals, again, I would say I'm going to adjust that down, but I'm not going to adjust that down very much. The biggest thing is what that's going to do is open up the market. How much of an impact that has on the actual market rent, who knows? But for my purposes, the way that I'm looking at this, I'm not going to make that a huge impact. And I'm just going to say $10. It may be worth more. It may be somebody that has animals. They may be willing to pay $100, $200 more per month to find a place. Like, let's say that you're going to rent a house that doesn't accept pets, and you go to that landlord and say, hey, I got a dog and I want to pay you more money. How much would it take to let you allow me to have pets here? What would that be? $10? Probably not. $50, $100, $150, maybe it would be. I don't know. But for my purposes, we're just going to adjust that down $10. Again, and more than anything, I'm kind of flying through this. I'm not sitting down and really thinking these things through too deeply here. I just want you to understand the process so that you can start working through it for yourself. Let's see. We adjusted down the storage shed $10. Well, it should be $10. Adjusted down the air conditioning. To me, that's a big one. Window units over central AC is a big deal. $100 for that, $10 for walk-in closets. And then, same set of instructions. If it's green, adjust the rent up, because it, again, from 4 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms, how much more could we charge if 19 or 1193 had a 4th bedroom, an extra bedroom? For me, I determined it's $50, and we're going to add $50 to that to, again, get those to be apples to apples, which is what we're trying to do. We're trying to raise and lower these amounts for each comp property to make them apples for apples, to see what that adjusted rent would be, and then determine if, after those adjustments, if our rent is within range. So $50 for the bedrooms. The pets and stuff, I'm going to add a little bit of money on there just because they allow pets, and but the fees are on there. Well, it's the fees is what I'm adjusting for. So my property doesn't have fees, theirs does, which means it's less attractive. And so if I were to remove those fees, how much would that be worth in rent to get that to be apples to apples? Sorry, I keep doing my hand thing here to balance out, but I don't think it's that big of an impact. Those fees are not that big of an impact. So I'm going to make a little bit of adjustment, but not much. Garage, that's a big one. If we were to bring in garages, right now our house is worth this, their house is worth this. If we were to add two garages, how much would that be worth? I am ballparking $35 to bring that even with our subject property. Let's see here. Anything else? Yep, we got $5 for washer dryer. Again, it's not that big of a impact for me, but we're going to add $5 anyway. So what we've done here is we've totaled this amount at the bottom, and that's ultimately what we're saying is after all the adjustments, we need to bring this market rent of $13.95. We need to bring that down by $185 in order to line it up and make it an apples to apples comparison with our subject property. And so then our adjusted rent column here is going to take that $13.95 minus the $185, and it is going to bring down, if we leveled out all the advantages and disadvantages, what would this house rent for? And based on that, I am saying that this house would rent for somewhere around $1,210. Now, I think that is probably pretty good. Our subject property is $1,200. This is $1,210, so that really evens it up. But what's even more important to me is that our adjusted rent per square foot is now $1.19 per square foot. This adjusted is $1.17 per square foot, which to me tells me that those adjustments are zoned in pretty well. In terms of comparing those and leveling the playing field out, I think we are pretty close. So to me, this is a dialed in comp. And that to me says after adjustments, this is worth renting for $1,210. Mine's renting for $1,200. I'm in pretty good shape. I think my rent rate is correct, and this is what I'm going to go with. Now, let's assume the same thing happens for comp 2 and comp 3, and once you get those all dialed in, if everything is lining up, then you're probably in really good shape, and that's a solid market rent comparison for you. Now, again, if all of these, after all these adjustments are way out of whack, like let's say after all these adjustments, everything was renting for, let's just say 700, 600, 650, just to get extreme, and you're asking 1,200, that's way out of whack. You know you're $600 over. I mean, yeah, you can go out there, but the chances of you getting that are going to be greatly reduced, and it's going to take you a longer time to rent. You're way over market. If it was the reverse, if these were all 1,800 and 1,900 after everything was adjusted for, and you're only asking for 12, you're leaving a lot of money on the table, and you need to bump that up. I would say that if you put that house on the market for 1,200 and those comps were truly showing that other, you'd probably have that thing leased in about 2 hours just because it was so cheap, but you're leaving way too much money on the table. So that's the other way to look at that. Okay, let me see here. Now, that's going to wrap this up on how to kind of do a market survey, and we're a pretty good time here, about 40 minutes in, which is where I like to say 40 minutes to an hour. A couple things I want to talk about before we go is this will be in the resources section as well. You're not going to have these other tabs here because this is just for demonstration, but you will have this blank tab, you will have the instruction tab, and I would recommend the first couple times doing this is to kind of walk through step by step so that you can keep everything like lined up, that way the adjustments up and down don't start to twist your mind, because it will happen easily. The other thing is don't worry about just using Zillow. Try some of the other sites out, or maybe look at the same or different sites and find different comps. That's a possibility as well. Or perhaps if you know of a property management company that's heavy in that area, look at their site. There's a lot of different ways we can look at this. And then also you can get on and look at those. Let me find one here real quick. Okay, so in the resource section here, As well, I will have a list of the kind of like the free rent estimations. I did not look at this at all before I started this video, so it'll be an experiment. Let's just see what we actually get when we do this and see what. Let's see what they come up with. Now look at that. Okay, so this is the free estimation, Zillow. Now again, I have 3, 4, 5, 6 of them will be listed in the resource, but this is just a quick and dirty one. So if you don't want to go through all of this, perhaps this is what you do. You go through and you check at these different written estimation prices, and what they do is they look at all of the other homes that are in the market, what they've leased for, not just what's available now, but in the recent past, and they come up with a median rent. And this is actually right on the dot, which is great because I did not look at this at all before I ballparked the rent. I ballparked this rent based off everything else I was seeing before I started this. So that actually makes me, I mean, this very easily could have gone, bad if I was being sloppy putting this together. And then if that thing would have said $900, it would have not really, maybe it wouldn't have made this look so good. But that actually helps me just personally reinforce that although this was just an exercise, we actually dialed this in very nicely, and the subject property for $1,200 at Jewel is a great rental rate for this particular property. That means we have priced this correctly. So, okay, folks, so that is what I have for how to do a market survey. I appreciate you taking the time today. I hope this has been helpful. Again, check out the little resource sections down below. You're going to have access to those websites. You're going to have access to the market survey form here. If you have any questions, make sure to join us during our weekly Q&A section. If you're part of the Landlord Launch program, or if you're part of the $11 Landlord program, of course, you can slap questions in the Q&A section there as well. So that is what we have for today. We'll go on and wrap it up. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you next time.